Welcome to The Banker's Cyborgs Daily Roundup. My name is Michelle Price. I'm business editor of The Banker, and I'm joined here today by Tim Lin, Managing Director of Strategic Planning at Omgeo. Tim, I know you've been to a few sessions, and one of the hot topics over the past year and at this year's Cyborgs has been the issue of credit default swaps. So tell me, what are you getting back from the conference, and what do you think are the material issues, and what do you think are the distractions?
So in terms of clearing, the material issues are the debate over whether we need one clearinghouse or many clearinghouses. And obviously there's efficiency in having one counterparty, but if we only had one counterparty, their ability to set fees and perhaps behave like a monopolist, that risk increases. If we have multiple counterparties, we get the efficiency of competition, but we get the inefficiency of having to post collateral with multiple clearinghouses. So I think, how many clearinghouses do we need? That's the first material issue. Second material issue is what products will be eligible for clearing, and how do we define eligibility? What is a standard derivative contract? So that's certainly a material issue. And finally, what are the rules, what are the risk guidelines and rules and policies the clearinghouse will follow to manage the underlying counterparty risk? So those are the material issues. The immaterial ones, I think, are all of political origin. So particularly, where should the clearinghouse be located? And the second is who should own the clearinghouse. So I think it's immaterial who owns it, only that they have the effective policies and procedures, default funds, and membership criteria, things of that nature. So whether it's owned by institutions that use it, I think that doesn't really matter as much as having a sound policy.
From a journalist's point of view, the really interesting development over the past year or so has been the proliferation of parties kind of weighing in and saying, actually, we like to do this. But obviously there is an issue of competition here. When you're dealing with something perceived to be so risky, what basis do you think these guys can actually compete on? How can they persuade dealers to connect to them rather than someone else? And what are the risks of that strategy?
The primary risk is that the clearinghouses compete by taking the minimum amount of capital, the minimum amount of margin possible, which then in turn subjects that clearinghouse to risks in the event of a market crisis. So that type of competition is similar to regulation, and that countries compete to attract capital, and we wouldn't want countries to compete based on having lax regulation or letting firms trade in risky manners. So I think we run that particular risk in competition of not taking the appropriate procedures, making the capital at that bare minimum.
And I know that you were at a session earlier you attended on counterparties, central counterparties save the world, and I think you sort of suggested the answer was yes. Was it well attended? Did you get a sense that there are lots of people at the conference who are really interested in this issue?
Yes, clearing has suddenly become sexy, which is a little bit ironic, the revenge of the back office perhaps, but no, it was very well attended, and they proposed the question, do central counterparties add value in terms of managing counterparty risk, and it was virtually unanimous that central counterparties will have an important role in that. But it's also important to remember, institutions have to manage the risk that they deal with in their daily transactions. The bespoke derivative is not going away, so the infrastructure to value those contracts, to reconcile those contracts, to manage the bilateral exchange of collateral related to those contracts. Central counterparties aren't going to solve that problem. The government isn't going to solve that problem. Effective risk management policies and investments and focus and taking responsibility and accountability for that risk is going to be a better approach for those firms.
In terms of how the debate has unfolded at the political level in Europe and in the US, it was suggested to me not that long ago that it has been the clearing houses like NYSE and ICE Trust and CME and all the usual players who have perhaps had the ear of the regulator more than the industry, and therefore they have perhaps been able to influence the views and the regulatory views to a greater extent. I mean, is that something you agree with? And if so, do you think that the dealers have had enough of a voice throughout?
Well, the markets may not be the greatest in the world, but the one market that's doing well is the lobbying market. So, lobbyists are alive and well, and there's a ton of vested interests in how clearing unfolds. Clearly, banks want to continue to trade bespoke derivatives. There's a healthy fee and revenue opportunities in that. Clearinghouses want to attract more transactions, so they see themselves with market opportunities. There's a lot of vendors out there that see themselves as part of that infrastructure, so they'll have a vested interests. But I think the dealers certainly have their voice. I don't know if their opinions are as well represented as they could be. I think ISDA does a great job and is representing them, and certainly wants to. They're voicing their concern that OTC derivatives have value. The bespoke nature and the hedging advantages of these bespoke derivatives is important. So I think ISDA is representing them well. There's just a lot of vested interests out there, so it's going to be an interesting debate.
And lastly, as a former SWIFT employee and a general veteran of Cybos, how do you find the show this year?
It's fun. I'm glad they got the attendance. That certainly by the numbers, it seems that there's a lot of people that came out here. So I always I enjoy the debates at Cybos. It does seem a little bit quiet, but maybe that's the lack of parties. So I think I'm most disappointed that all the parties have been canceled, and what wasn't canceled ahead of time, it seems the typhoon has thrown a damper in it. But I think we're gonna rebound and have a strong rest of the week in terms of entertainment, excitement, debate, and hopefully some after hours activities.
Tim Lim, Omgeo, thanks very much.